The following PowerPoint is a brief presentation and synopsis of the gasoline and fuel sales text amendment. The following PowerPoint will go over a brief overview, research, proposals found not only from city staff located here in Kansas City, Missouri, but also current proposals found nationally, and most importantly include feedback and discussion. Ordinance 240157 was passed by the City Council in February of 2024, which established a moratorium for new gas stations as well as expansions of existing gas stations. The moratorium also placed a pause on the issuance of any permits or special use permits for gas station uses. The City Council asked for staff to look at how gas stations can impact the environmental, public health, and safety concerns of our constituents. Also, staff was tasked with analyzing the concentration of this specific use, gasoline and fuel sales, and the moratorium is set to expire on October 7th of 2024. The proposed amendments are rooted through a multi-departmental review approach, which included regulated industries, Kansas City Police Department, the Office of Environmental Quality, and City Planning and Development staff. There are 163 existing gas stations within the city limits of Kansas City, Missouri. In 2012, the zoning code changed and required a special use permit for this specific use, gasoline and fuel sales. In 2019, the City Council passed a public engagement ordinance, which requires special use permits notify all property owners within 300 feet of the subject property. The intent of the proposals is to expand and enhance public engagement opportunities for neighborhoods or businesses that may be impacted by a future gas station or the expansion of a gas station. The proposed amendment would increase the distance from 300 feet to 750 feet in which those property owners would need to be notified if there is a new or proposed expansion to an existing gas station. City Planning and Development staff worked with the Kansas City, Missouri Police Department. The Kansas City Police Department has been analyzing the impact that gas stations have on communities through risk terrain modeling. This modeling shows that gasoline and fuel sales are a major contributor to the amount of calls that the Kansas City Police Department currently takes. Proposed text amendments also incorporate CEPTED, crime prevention through environmental design principles. City planning staff and the Kansas City Police Department analyzed communities throughout the entire United States which have already incorporated either CEPTED ordinances or CEPTED principles into their code of ordinances. Staff considered the following points when making the proposed text amendment: placement suitability, co-location and density, environmental impacts, site arrangement, public safety, liquor sales, and the public engagement process and special use permit requirements. The following slide has two maps. On the left, in green, shows where gas stations are currently allowed by right without the requirement of approval of a special use permit or conducting the public engagement requirement. The dots on the map are where existing gas stations are located. On the right is where gas stations would be permitted with the approval of a special use permit that can be found in the color green. This green incorporates the 200-foot buffer from residential zoning districts as well as the 1,500-foot separation distance from an existing gas station. Staff's recommendations came from a national approach that can be found throughout the entire United States. For example, in Atlanta, Georgia, gas stations cannot be located within 1,500 feet of another service station. In Hartford, Connecticut, that is a 1,200-foot separation distance. In Overland Park, Kansas, gasoline and fuel sales are only permitted in 2 of their zoning districts. In South Bend, Indiana, they are only permitted in 4 zoning districts. And as of right now, Denver, Colorado is in the process of establishing gasoline and fuel standards and separation distances. Their current proposal would require a 300-foot buffer from residential uses. Applicability. This would include the new development of a gas station, enlargements or expansions, facade changes, and change of use or occupancy. Exemptions would be if a gasoline and fuel sales establishment is approved through the development plan process, which requires public engagement, going to the City Plan Commission, and ultimately final approval from the City Council. Proposed location requirements for gasoline and fuel sales. They address concentration of these uses, the environmental and public safety impacts on residential districts. They encourage more public engagement. This is going from the 300-foot requirement to 750 feet, where all those property owners would be notified of an expansion or new gasoline and fuel sales establishment. And across the entire city, special use permits would be required for all new gas stations and expansions. The following slide has 2 maps. The map on the left shows existing gasoline and fuel sales with a 1,500-foot buffer on each gasoline and fuel station. You can see on the map on the left where there are concentrations of these uses. On the right is a buffer of 200 feet applied to all residential zoning districts. A gasoline and fuel sales establishment would not be permitted to be established or expand within the 200 feet of a residential district, which is highlighted in the red. Following slide is the use table for gasoline and fuel sales within the B and O zoning district. The O zoning district does not permit gasoline and fuel sales. B1, B2, and B3 zoning districts have always required a special use permit. This proposal would require a special use permit also in the B4 zoning district. The following slide shows the manufacturing district's use table. The proposal would require special use permits in the M1, M2, M3, and M4 zoning districts. Proposed text amendment also focuses on making entrances safer, not only for customers, but also for employees and emergency personnel to be able to see in and out, which also is addressed through window transparency requirements, which are all rooted through SEPTED principles. The proposed ordinance also has more defined specifications for dumpster enclosures, defined pedestrian circulation on and adjacent to the site, and also focuses on 4-sided architecture, which explicitly is focused whenever an existing gas station has an expansion. The proposed ordinance also has lighting requirements. This allows for increased safety for users, staff, and the Kansas City Police Department. The lighting standards also address standards that are found nationally and locally. This can also reduce the negative impact of lighting when adjacent to residential uses. The proposed ordinance also discusses operations, which are rooted again with SEPTED principles to increase and enhance public safety. In this photo on the bottom right, you can see the ice cooler is located in front of the window. The proposed ordinance would require the ice cooler to be located in front of the brick wall to enhance visibility from inside and outside the store. The proposed ordinance also addresses existing gasoline and fuel sale uses. The proposed ordinance would allow for existing gasoline and fuel sales to apply for a certificate of legal nonconformance. This certificate would allow for an operator to expand the existing structure and construct a new structure. This would also be required to follow the procedures of 88-525, which is the special use permit process. The next steps for the Gasoline and Fuel Sales Text Amendment is to go before the City Plan Commission on September 18th. There is a virtual option as well. Please visit kcmo.gov/CPC. This is where staff will present revised text amendments, and public testimony will also be taken at this time. Feedback to city staff for the proposed revisions to the text amendment would be required to be submitted to staff by September 11th, and please email your comments and feedback to publicengagement@kcmo.org.